Hence, such persons also have received no name. But let us call them insensible. Insensible. That's a person who's in the extreme of having no pleasures. With regard to giving and taking of money, the mean is liberality. The excess and the defect are prodigality, spending too much all the time, and not spending enough. He calls it rudeness or meanness or baseness. He then spends about 12 lines or so analyzing the spending of money and the excess and deficiency in either side. We skip that. With regard to honor and dishonor, the mean, the middle of the road, is proper pride. The excess is known as a sort of empty vanity. Nowadays, by the way, pretty much any type of vanity or pride, it says proper pride, but that would be a contradiction in terms for a lot of people nowadays. They don't think of pride as good. Pride's a bad thing. And the deficiency is undue humility, being humble when you shouldn't be, or when you're being more humble than you really are. And liberality is related to magnificence, differing from it by dealing with small sums. So there is a state similarly related to proper pride, being concerned with small honors, while that is concerned with great. We're trying to uphold the average golden mean idea. For it is possible to desire honor as one should, and more than one should, and less. So you can desire as much as you ought to, more or less than you ought to. And the man who exceeds in his desires is called ambitious. He wants too much honor. The man who falls short is called unambitious, and the intermediate person has no name. The dispositions also are nameless, except that that of the ambitious man is called ambition. Now we skip a ways as they hash that out just a little more to the next paragraph. With regard to anger, also there is an excess, a deficiency, and a mean, although they can scarcely be said to have names, yet since we call the intermediate person good-tempered, let us call the mean good temper, the average, the middle. Let's call it good temper. Of the persons at the extremes, let the one who exceeds be called irascible, and his vice irascibility. And the man who falls short, an irascible sort of person, and the deficiency, and the man who falls short, an inirascible sort of person, and his deficiency is inirascibility. He needs to be more irascible. Alright. There are also 3 other means, which have a certain likeness to one another, but differ from one another. For they are all concerned with intercourse in words and actions, but differ in that one is concerned with truth in this sphere, and the other 2 with pleasantness. And of this one kind is exhibited in giving amusement, the other in all the circumstances of life. We must therefore speak of these also, that we may the better see that in all things the average, the mean, the middle of the road, is praiseworthy, and the extremes are not praiseworthy nor right, but worthy of blame. Now most of these states also have no names, but we must try, as in the other cases, to invent names ourselves so that we may be clear and easy to follow. With regard to truth, then, the intermediate is a truthful sort of person, and the mean may be called truthfulness, while the pretense which exaggerates is a boastfulness, and the person characterized by it is a boaster, and that which understates is mock modesty, and the person characterized by it is mock modest. With regard to pleasantness in the giving of amusement, the intermediate person is ready-witted. Now let's stop before we go on to the ready-witted person. And the person characterized as exaggerating, and the person as mock modest who understates. And the average, the middle of the road, is the truthful person. Once again, wouldn't it be more useful to say, I go to the extreme of never having any contradictions between my case and reality. I don't do any sort of middle of the road thing. You know what I mean? Again, it's just not a system that can be held up. With regard to pleasantness in the giving of amusement, in the intermediate person is ready-witted, and the disposition ready wit, and the excess is buffoonery, and the person characterized by it a buffoon. So there's a difference between being a witty person who can say a few good things and somebody who makes a buffoon of himself, while the man who falls short is a sort of bore, B-O-O-R, and his state is boorishness. With regard to the remaining kind of pleasantness, that which is exhibited in life in general, the man who is pleasant in the right way is friendly, and the mean, the averageness, is friendliness, while the man who exceeds is an obsequious person if he has no end in view, a flatterer if he is aiming at his own advantage. So if he's just being nice because he's a moron, you call him obsequious. The man who falls short and is unpleasant in all circumstances is quarrelsome and a surly sort of person. There are also means, averages, in the passions and concerned with the passions. Since shame is not a virtue, and yet praise is extended to the modest man. For even in these matters one man is said to be intermediate, and the other to exceed, as for the instance the bashful man who is ashamed of everything, while he who falls short, or is not ashamed of anything at all, is shameless, and the intermediate person is modest. Righteous indignation is a mean, an average, between envy and spite. So envy is to hate and brood, and spite is to actively try to destroy, and righteous indignation is the virtuous average. Okay, so righteous indignation is between envy and spite, and these states are concerned with the pain and the pleasures that are felt at the fortunes of our neighbors. The man who is characterized by righteous indignation is pained at undeserved good fortune. Right? Righteous indignation, that's an attitude of justice. When someone has undeserved good fortune, you have righteous indignation. The envious man, going beyond him, is pained at all good fortune, even the deserved. And the spiteful man falls so far short of being pained that he even rejoices. So, that's strange. Rejoices that these people are rich? But these states there will be an opportunity of describing elsewhere, and it says in the footnote, the reference may be to the entire treatment of the moral virtues in Book 3, 6 through 9, or to the discussion of shame in Book 9. So it's obviously not clear. With regard to justice, so described elsewhere with regard to justice, since it has not one simple meaning, we shall, after describing the other states, distinguish its two kinds, two different types of justice, and say how each of them is an average. And similarly we shall treat also of the rational virtues. You can see, to keep everything, make sure that everything that's good shows up to be an average, and shows up to be not too much and not enough. It's really a lot of energy going into this system here. There are three kinds of disposition then, two of them vices involving excess and deficiency respectively, and one a virtue, viz., the mean, and all are in a sense opposed to all. For the brave man appears to be rash relatively to the coward, and cowardly relatively to the rash. Similarly, the temperate man appears self-indulgent relative to the insensible man, and insensible relatively to the self-indulgent. And the liberal man seems prodigal relative to the mean man, and the mean relatively to the prodigal. Hence also, the people at the extremes push the intermediate man each over to the other, and the brave man is called rash by the coward, and cowardly by the rash, and correspondingly in the other cases. Now,